Teenager attacked by an officer at the Warren jail is going on the offensive, taking the city to court for tens of millions of dollars. Thanks for being with us here at 6 o'clock. I'm Kimberly Gill.
I'm Devin Skillian. Officer Matthew Rodriguez fired from Warren Police this week for that incident in what the police commissioner called a clear and obvious decision, but that is far from the end of the story.
A new lawsuit says the city should pay, arguing the other officers seen in the video were not trying to stop the attack, but were instead part of it. Here to help us sort out the claims is Victor Williams. Victor, good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Kimberly and Devin. We all knew that a lawsuit was potentially coming down the pipeline, but we had no idea it would be coming out this quickly. Not only is the city of Warren and the officer who is allegedly responsible for the attack listed as defendants, but the other two officers that were in that room as well.
The officer said, "Hurry up and take the picture, you little," and he said, "I ain't no."
Just 14 days after the now viral moment of an officer assaulting a 19-year-old carjacking suspect, a lawsuit has officially been filed against the city of Warren on behalf of Jaquan Smith and Fire Law.
He's about double the size of him.
The 30-page complaint is now seeking $50 million in damages. Jaquan's aunt Tanisha Banks is just happy he's still here.
The first thing that ran across my mind, did he survive?
Commissioner Bill Dwyer commenting on how quickly the lawsuit was filed.
Why do they have to rush to doing that?
I wish I could have got it filed sooner, but we did it as fast as we possibly could.
The big question is whether or not Jaquan received any injuries in the assault.
He was treated at the hospital for his injuries, and he was cleared of no injuries.
He is still, as of this day, having issues with head injuries. He's having headaches, dizziness, nausea, consistent with traumatic brain injury.
Another question is whether the other two officers involved actually intervened.
They were actors, they were part of this brutality, and they will be held responsible as well.
They didn't see what the officer had done at the beginning. They came in when he was down on the ground, and they don't know. So, but when the officer started banging his head, that's when they said, "Enough is enough," and they reported immediately to their supervisor.
Either way, the now fired officer Matthew Rodriguez has been charged with misdemeanor assault. It also turns out he has a history of alleged excessive force.
There was a lawsuit against him, and it stemmed from one occurrence with two different plaintiffs. One of them was settled, one of them was dismissed on qualified immunity.
And Jaquan is still behind bars, but of course we're going to keep our eyes very closely attached to what happens as this lawsuit unfolds. In Warren tonight, Victor Williams, Local 4.
Okay, Victor, thank you.
We have a police officer now who is on trial after leaving a handcuffed woman in a police car when it was parked on the train tracks. A train slammed in the car, but thankfully the woman survived. Kana Whitworth has that story for us. Good morning, Kana.
Yeah, Robin, good morning. The video terrifying. As you can imagine, the suspect in the car had extensive injuries, including a traumatic brain injury. And this morning, the lawyer for the officer says she never realized the other officer she was assisting had parked on the tracks. This morning, the officer accused of placing a handcuffed female suspect in the back of a patrol car moments before a freight train plowed into it is standing trial. Police body and dash cameras capturing the horrifying crash.
At the time, she elected to place Urani Rios Gonzalez in the Platteville patrol car parked on the railroad tracks instead of her own patrol unit that was safely parked to the west of the railroad tracks.
Officer Jordan Steinke is facing 2 charges: felony attempted reckless manslaughter and misdemeanor reckless endangerment. Steinke taking the stand Tuesday, arguing that she did not see any reflective signs or gates indicating a railroad crossing at the time of the incident.
It was incredibly dark. I was miles outside of my jurisdiction. I was fairly certain that that particular stop was going to end in a gunfight. I never in a million years thought a train was going to come plowing through my scene.
Claiming she would have not put the suspect in the vehicle if she knew it was parked on a railroad.
I trusted that Sergeant Vasquez's vehicle was in a secure location at that time.
We have to remember that hindsight is 20/20. The body cam is going to be so vital because now we can see how much light there was. How far was she?
Send us medical.
The woman who survived the collision, 21-year-old Urani Rios Gonzalez, was initially arrested and charged with a misdemeanor for an alleged road rage incident back in September. she pled no contest. The edited 8-minute video released by police shows officers pulling her over. One officer parking on the track.
Turn around! Put your hands up higher.
With guns drawn, police order her to get out, handcuff her, and put her into the back of the cruiser.
Ma'am, what's going on?
The officers return to search her truck, but then a train can be heard approaching. The horn finally catching their attention. One officer turns, looks back at the cruiser, and runs.
Stay back!
Rios Gonzalez hit while still cuffed inside. The car destroyed on impact. Rios Gonzalez sustaining extensive injuries.
She has a fractured tibia, a broken arm, which she's had surgery on. She had 9 broken ribs. She has a fractured sternum.
And also this morning, Rios Gonzalez is filing a civil complaint, and the Platteville officer, who's the one who parked on the tracks, is also being prosecuted for misdemeanor counts of reckless endangerment. Guys.
Every time you see that video, my goodness, Kena.
Miraculous she survived.
Thank goodness for that.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.
First, though, a family demands justice after a child's birthday party mistakenly becomes the site of a Chicago police raid. At the time of the raid, a 4-year-old boy was celebrating his birthday. The person police were looking for moved from that home years earlier.
WGN's Marcella Raymond here with the full story. Marcella.
Yeah, and the family that was having that birthday party says it was the most terrifying experience they have ever had. And the thing is, they didn't have to go through any of it.
It's a scary feeling. It was very scary.
Kiana Jackson and Stephanie Burris cried again today, reliving the night 6 weeks ago when their house was raided by 17 Chicago police officers with guns drawn. It was Stephanie Burris's 4-year-old son TJ's birthday.
Can you imagine a 4 or a 7-year-old sitting playing games with the other children and then come in and being confiscated with guns pointed at them?
Burris, whose 7-year-old daughter Samari was also in the house, and Jackson, their aunt, filed a federal excessive force case and civil rights case against the city and Chicago police. Burris and Jackson say they asked to see the search warrant and were denied. We're told the officers were from Skokie and wouldn't tell them their names or badge numbers.
I reached for my phone and then I was tackled by 2 of the police officers. So knowing that one officer went through my phone to double check to make sure I didn't film anything. So no, I was handcuffed.
The house is in the 7700 block of Paulina in Auburn Gresham. According to the search warrant, police were looking for a man suspected of possessing and selling ecstasy. He had not lived at that location in years.
Our children in Auburn Gresham face enough trauma every day just trying to grow up in Chicago.
Stephanie Burrs says her children are terrified, cannot sleep, have nightmares, and don't want to leave the house. They felt like they and their family were going to be shot that night on February 10th.
To hear her say that, to worry about her or her brother getting shot by someone that's supposed to protect and serve them, it's terrifying.
Now, the women's attorney made FOIA requests for about a month for any dash cam, body cam, or other information related to this raid. He has not heard back from them. He says he doesn't think the officers had body cameras, Joe and Micah, which is required by law. They are supposed to have them on. So I contacted Chicago Police, have not heard back from them for a comment on this. But we'll keep following it.
Thanks, Marcella.
Okay.
We're learning about the moments just before a James City County police officer shot his sergeant outside a Williamsburg bar.
Michael Rusk is facing charges in connection to that January shooting, which seriously hurt Sergeant Christopher Gibson. Investigators initially said the 2 officers got into a fight after a night of drinking. But as 10 on your side's Julie Millay learned, the shooting might have been about much more than a bar fight.
Yeah,
Julie?
Tom and Amy, investigators simply said the 2 officers involved in the shooting were known to each other. Now we're learning what that might really mean. The alleged shooter, Michael Rusk, says he pulled the trigger in self-defense because of unwanted advances by his sergeant. We're about to share exclusive surveillance video and the 911 call from the shooting, which we played for Michael Rusk's family for the first time.
Would you like to hear it?
I'd love to hear it.
For the first time, Jason Rusk is hearing the 911 call his son made in the early morning hours of January 25th.
I shot Sergeant Gibson. Do what? I shot Sergeant Gibson. I pulled a gun on him because he's advancing on me. Is he breathing? He just fell out.
James City County Police Officer Michael Rusk called 911 after he allegedly shot his superior officer, Sergeant Christopher Gibson, outside a Williamsburg bar, where the two had been drinking together. Video given exclusively to 10 on Your Side shows the two officers before this happened.
I shot him on his right arm. Okay, I need you to take a deep breath for me, okay? Is he breathing? Crying! Is he breathing? I'm trying to save his life!
The 911 call goes on for just over 5 minutes. That's when responding officers show up to find Gibson had been shot 3 times, seriously hurt in his stomach and shoulder. Court documents show Gibson told officers Rusk shot him after a verbal argument. But Rusk, his dad, and his lawyers say it was much more than that.
You know, it started to get creepy.
Jason Rusk says his son told him about unwanted attention he got from his superior officer leading up to the shooting, and that he had reported it to others on the force.
There was a year's worth of grooming that had taken place.
Rusk says his son is the victim of unwanted sexual advances and had been for a long time.
Extremely inappropriate touching, stalking, the grooming, the previous to the incident assaults.
We reached out to Gibson several times to ask him about these allegations. He declined to speak with us. We also requested from JCCPD a record of any complaints filed against Gibson during his time there. We were denied. The video shows the officers at the bar prior to the shooting. You can see them sitting across from each other at the start. Then you'll see Gibson move in to sit next to Rusk. Gibson reaches for Rusk's hand under the table, which seems to be met with hesitation from the younger officer. Then, just about an hour before the shooting, the two are seen leaving together. After Gibson puts his hand on Rusk's shoulder, you see Rusk forcefully push him off and put a finger in his face before walking away. We don't know what happened next, but after the shooting, Rusk makes this claim to the 911 dispatcher.
I told him to stop. He kept going. I thought he was going to rape me. Help me. Help.
If our client was a female, this case would be drastically different.
Rusk's lawyer says the video and 911 call make a clear case for self-defense.
I think it'll show that certain steps weren't taken that needed to be taken.
The attorney says those steps, like looking into Rusk's claims of unwanted sexual advances, could have prevented what Rusk's dad calls a tragedy, which will affect his son for the rest of his life.
He told people from the get-go that he was sexually assaulted. He said no, and he kept on. He said no, and he kept on. If I had a daughter in the same position, we wouldn't even be here. We wouldn't have an innocent person fighting for their freedom.
Williamsburg officers are investigating the shooting. They had no comment on this story. James City County Police also declined to comment. Calls to the prosecutor trying the case were unreturned. You can hear the complete 911 call on wavy.com. I'm Julie Millay, 10 on Your Side.
This is EJ's room.
In this room, time stands still.
His aunt made this comforter with all his clothes that he left behind.
As a place to visit memories of EJ Strickland.
And we come in here and we're reminded of him and our faith. And with our faith, we know where he's at. We know we're going to see him again, and nobody can hurt him again.
26-year-old EJ Strickland was shot in the back of the head by an Auburn police officer while lying face down in a parking lot. His parents, Anosha and Kathleen Strickland, were already on their way to pick him up when the shooting happened. They got there 5 minutes after he was killed.
I did see him, and I called for him, and I let him know that Mom was there to pick him up. We're there, EJ. We're here. And so I just kept yelling at him to see if I can see anything from him.
The Stricklands say for years they were left in the dark about what happened to their son.
I feel betrayed. I feel betrayed by
the people that we brought up to trust.
They had to turn to attorney Gemma Zanowski.
I switched firms, and I could not stop thinking about the Strickland family.
The Strittmatter firm reopened the case. During its investigation, it found officers did not turn on their dash cam audio until after the shooting, and found Officer Lyman carried an unapproved and illegal dagger that fell from his uniform during a struggle with EJ. Lyman claimed EJ grabbed the knife and refused to drop it. Zanowski also uncovered the Auburn Police Department handed down little discipline for excessive force.
Officer Lyman, he had been found in violation of Auburn Police Department policy in 2018, a year before this happened. He was not disciplined.
The $5.9 million amount is the highest to be paid by the city to resolve an excessive force claim. In a statement, the city of Auburn says the parties elected to go to mediation rather than a lengthy trial to bring closure to the event, and that settlement is not an admission of any wrongdoing.
That's not a charge for...
Hello, license registration?
What are you pulling me over for?
I'll be glad to tell you as soon as you give me your information.
Well, I'll give you my information once you can articulate what crime I've committed.
Okay, license registration.
What crime have I committed?
Okay, step out of the vehicle.
What crime have I committed?
Step out of the vehicle.
This is being recorded.
I saw your camera. Step out of the vehicle. Step out of the vehicle. You're under arrest for disorderly conduct. Step out.
That's not a charge for...
Step out of the vehicle. You're under arrest for disorderly conduct. You gonna comply? Put your hands behind your back. There you go.
The Supreme Court has ruled that giving you guys the finger is not disorderly conduct. Freedom of speech.
A driver in Commerce City is tasered, beaten, and pepper sprayed by police. They thought he was drunk, but he wasn't. He was in diabetic shock. CBS 4 investigator Brian Moss reports this tragic mistake is costing that city more than $800,000.
Carl Liedholm says he can't remember these moments from 2014.
At some point along the way, things started to get black.
When a run-in with Commerce City police left him battered.
My face looked like I'd been dragged by a chain behind a vehicle on the asphalt.
The 41-year-old father, who has type 1 diabetes, left work that afternoon feeling poorly. As he drove, it got worse, and he now believes he went into insulin shock. According to Commerce City police reports, witnesses saw him weaving, driving into oncoming traffic and into a ditch.
I'm not sure the exact mileage, sir.
The lead officer, Chris Dickey, said all signs pointed to one conclusion.
And you thought this was a drunk driving incident? Yes.
How much had you had to drink before that incident?
Nothing. I've never had a drink of alcohol in my life.
By their own account, when police finally got Liedholm's truck stopped, he was forcibly removed, thrown to the pavement where he curled up in a fetal position. Unaware of his medical condition, when Liedholm did not obey commands, officers hit him with batons, tasered him 5 times, and pepper sprayed him in the eyes.
I'm coming out of this saying that I'm diabetic, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened, and they're telling me that's a load of shit. F you, you're not diabetic. If you were diabetic, you wouldn't be fighting us.
Paramedics arrived and said his blood sugar was about 1/3 of what's normal. Officers concluded he had not been drinking. Liedholm's lawyer says what happened here clearly highlights one thing.
I don't think any of them had adequate training on how to recognize these signs of, in this specific instance, the diabetes that Carl was having.
Put your hands behind your back, you're under arrest. In this deposition, Officer Dickey described what was done to Liedholm, including using his baton.
So how far back did you reach before you struck him in the leg with it? Probably just above my head.
Did you swing it as hard as you could from that distance?
Yes.
The officer was asked if they had simply questioned Liedholm immediately. Could this all have been avoided?
There is a possibility that information could have been obtained at the beginning, yes.
Now, Commerce City will pay $825,000 and avoid going to trial.
For half a dozen officers to treat me that way, it's beyond my belief to understand why they would need to use such force.
I'm Brian Moss, covering Colorado First.
Commerce City tells us it decided to settle the case to avoid a trial and a potential appeal. It says it does have insurance that will cover nearly the entire settlement amount.
Chicago police changing how they conduct search warrants after an 18-month CBS 2 investigation exposed officers repeatedly raiding innocent families' homes.
Yeah, the mom of these children says it's not nearly enough. CBS 2 investigator Dave Savini showed her newly uncovered body camera footage of her bad raid.
It's 8:30 at night.
I see lights.
You're inside a police car on Chicago's South Side.
We're sneaky.
A team of officers zeroes in on a house. 14 heavily armed cops.
Swing up.
On the hunt for a heroin dealer with the street name Peanut.
Door's locked.
Did anybody knock?
No.
They just came in?
Search warrant, Chicago police! Door's open. Go in. Watch the right.
But they are breaking into the wrong home. And all they find are innocent children.
They had guns to our faces.
14-year-old Savannah in the purple shirt hits the ground. You are looking at the back end of a high-powered rifle. Lying next to her, still in his school uniform, is her 7-year-old brother, JJ. He was stunned at the sight of an assault rifle.
And they had their finger on a trigger.
In another room, their 11-year-old sister, Talia, is face down, surrounded by more weapons. Their mother, Crystal Archie, watches for the first time what happened to her children. She was on her way home from work when the raid happened back in April of 2019.
Relax.
Please do not shoot me.
You're fine.
You know who's on the floor right there? Can you tell who's on the floor?
My daughter is on the floor. I can hear her. I can hear her yelling. I can hear her yelling. And you just see the guns at the back of her head.
Her oldest child, Savannah, was babysitting.
Come on, get up.
They're handling heavy artillery. It would have taken one slip of your finger, and my children would not be here.
We don't want to see that happen. We don't want to erode the trust with the community.
Now, for the first time, Chicago police are talking about the disturbing trend the CBS 2 investigators exposed, which includes more than 23 children who say police pointed guns at them during wrong raids.
Where did they point the gun at you?
I wanted to like right here, but like straight at it.
Where did they point the rifle?
It was like around.
They pointed a gun at me.
When you saw some of the stories, what did you feel for some of these kids?
Based on the way that the footage was, you felt bad for them.
Chicago Police Lieutenant Matthew Klein and Risk Manager Michelle Morris.
Let's be clear, no child should have a gun pointed in his face.
They say the department is now adding training for officers to deal with children and creating a new search warrant policy aimed at protecting kids from trauma during raids.
How are you going to deal with children?
We're making sure that if we know children to be present, that in our operational planning, that it's discussed that there's going to be children in here.
What good is the plan if the officer, the affiant who's getting the warrant, hasn't independently verified, double-checked and triple-checked the informant's information to make sure you're actually going into the right apartment or the right home?
Are there some that are not being done to the standards that we have? Absolutely, and that's being addressed.
Lieutenant Klein says there will be more oversight of the search warrant approval process, including a requirement mandating all officers run the proper public record checks through their information center at police headquarters to make sure they are raiding the right addresses.
Things fell through the cracks and they didn't realize that that was the proper way to obtain this information.
Repeated failures to get addresses right, leaving behind a trail of trauma.
Just the saddest moment.
And still, the city is refusing to track these wrong raids, covering up just how big the problem really is. The little bit of data the CBS 2 investigators forced the city to release shows since 2016, police executed 6,800 search warrants. In nearly 3,000 cases, not a single arrest was made. We can't tell you how many of those 3,000 were wrong raids because tonight, even with the new policy in place, They admit they still have no method to track these kinds of wrong raids.
Are you creating any kind of a database for that, for those types of raids?
It has not currently been contemplated, but I mean, it might be in the future.
And while they still won't track all the wrong raids, there are changes requiring body cameras are rolling from start to finish at every single new raid.
It must be on the entire time.
At what point in the raid are they supposed to turn them off?
When they leave.
Which brings us back to the Archie raid, where we found the raid team cut their body cameras off after only 3 minutes. In fact, police stopped recording right after the cameras captured something happening to the children that's not only outrageous, it might even be illegal.
Hey, just tell us, do you know where the stuff's at? Because if you can tell us that, then we're out of here.
And with no parent present,
Over here. Have a seat. Hold your hands like your sister. No, like this. Hold your hands like this. All three of you.
continue questioning.
Any drugs? You know of any drugs that he sells?
Remember, this is the wrong house, and they never even heard of the guy named in the warrant.
So he stopped selling out of here? He stopped keeping it here? Who? Whoever keeps it here? We never had it.
The children say the interrogation continued, followed by a search of the home. But there's no body camera video of that because the sergeant in charge gave this order.
If everybody's secure, we can kill cameras.
The kids say when the police left, they told them they would return.
And there was a real fear from the children that they might come back.
Absolutely. I've literally walked into the apartment and I just cried. And there's no way to feel about going home. And that's my life now.
3 weeks after that raid, police raided the family's home again. We can't show you what happened that time because we are told none of those officers used body cameras. It's been 10 months since those raids, and no one from Internal Affairs or the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, the agency that investigates police misconduct, has reached out to interview Crystal Archie or her kids. The Archies filed a federal lawsuit against CPD about 6 months ago.
So, Dave, this federal lawsuit, it's filed at least 6 months ago. Shouldn't that trigger a COPA investigation?
Historically, that is supposed to trigger a COPA investigation. They aren't commenting, but if they haven't already started an investigation, I'm sure after they just saw what happened here, there's one underway right now.
Yeah, 18 months, CPD has not talked to you. They finally did tonight and completely overhauled their procedures. Good work, Dave.
More work to be done, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank
Dave.
you.
Held by the neck, a knee to the groin, and thrown to the ground. Video you'll only see on News 4 shows the violent actions by 2 DeSoto police officers. Now those officers are facing criminal charges. Cameras inside the booking room at the DeSoto police station show officers James Daly and Bethany Zarcone bring in a suspect. Moments later, a third officer enters the room, Elena Campbell, to start the booking process. For several minutes, things seem civil until the 2 officers try to get the man to look at the camera for his booking photo. Officer Daly grabbing the man by the hair.
Turn and face. You need to hold your head. Do this. What are you doing? 615 out, dude. Got me in there. I'm going through. You understand me? You understand me? You understand me?
Officer Daly stands the man back up, again trying to get the man's photo. You can hear the man plead with officers.
Why are you hurting me? Right there. Why are you hurting me? I'm scared. Look at the camera. I'm sorry, but you're scaring me.
Still not complying and the officer's frustration growing, Officer Zarcone moves in, pushes the man, then grabs him by the head, and watch what happens next.
You're right here. If you will let my
Officer Zarcone is seen kneeing the man in the groin. Moments later, things escalate even more as the man screams while the officers attempt to pull off the man's shoes. After nearly 2 minutes of struggling with the man on the ground, they drag him out of the room and down a hallway. Nearly 2 months after this altercation, DeSoto's police chief asked the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office to do an investigation of the incident. The result, James Daly charged with 3 counts of assault, Bethany Zarcone charged with 1 count of assault, and Elena Campbell charged with tampering with evidence for deleting photos she took from the computer during the incident. She told investigators she was instructed to do so by a supervisor because she believed they contained evidence of an assault. And James Daly was no longer a DeSoto officer at the time of the external investigation into this incident. Daly is the same officer who put up this controversial Halloween display in his front yard last year that had a cross with the words, "Here lies Michael Brown, a fat ghetto clown." Before policing in DeSoto, he was an officer in St. Louis for 20 years.
Police have dropped charges against a teen who was arrested for walking in a Plano street during last week's winter weather. The entire encounter was caught on camera. The high school student believes he was arrested because he's black, but Plano's chief of police believes his officers' actions were not racially motivated. Fox 4's David Santendry has the details. David.
Natalie, the 18-year-old says video of George Floyd and other black men killed or hurt by police officers makes him feel uneasy around law enforcement. Plano's chief of police tells me he's dropping the charge because it does not fit what officers were initially called out to investigate.
Hey man, whoop. You trying to get home? Are you trying to get home?
18-year-old Rodney Reese was stopped by Plano police officers while walking home from work at Walmart during the Texas freeze last Tuesday night. Police say someone called, concerned that a black male wearing a short-sleeved shirt was stumbling along the icy conditions. It was a welfare check. Reese lives with his mom just a few blocks away, right down the street from where he works. He repeatedly told officers he was fine.
Sir, look, we just want to talk to you. All right?
I'm on the way home. I'm straight.
Okay. Okay, but you're walking in the middle of the road.
I understand that. I do this every night, literally. I'm straight.
Okay. You ain't cold or nothing?
No.
With that cheap shirt on?
Officers continued to follow him, however, for 2 minutes and 17 seconds.
We're doing an investigation.
I don't care. I'm going home.
You were officially detained.
No.
Yes, yes you are.
Bro.
Before handcuffs were placed around his wrists.
Just relax, all right?
Just relax.
We're just trying to talk to you.
I got an anger problem. Please get off me. Y'all not, no.
Stop.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to touch you.
Yeah, you didn't stop. Put your hands behind your back now. You are not free to go.
Why?
The next thing you do is going to be get a charge right now.
Why?
Because you're pushing on an officer.
I'm not pushing. How am I pushing on?
Reese was arrested for walking in the street. The official charge, pedestrian in the roadway. The high school student spent the night in jail.
They just treated me like I was a criminal or something.
The teen says he was walking along the street because the area off to the side of it, seen in this photo taken the next day, was covered in ice and snow. He says he kept walking away because he didn't need help.
Just a simple encounter. A simple encounter. That's why I tried to dodge you. So I couldn't make it home. I don't know.
Friends and loved ones say he's just a good kid with a clean record who was scared.
I know the kid's character. I know the kid's demeanor.
Plano Police Chief Ed Drain backs his officers for checking on Reese.
There's a lot of information that we know about this case that we didn't know at the time. Those officers did not know his age. They didn't know he was 18. They didn't know he worked at Walmart. They didn't know where he lived.
First of all, you were in the roadway, which is a safety hazard, and you're not supposed to be in the roadway.
Still, he says the arrest wasn't consistent with the reason officers went out there, a welfare check. He says the 18-year-old was difficult to cooperate with, but that he has a right to not cooperate. He's dropping the charge.
They should have taken him home, is where he should have gone.
The police department will determine if an internal investigation is warranted. Chief Drain doesn't believe race was a factor in the arrest.
But I can't get inside people's hearts. I can't get inside people's heads.
As for Reese,
just because I'm black, that's it. Just because I'm black, I fit the description. I don't even think the call would happen, honestly.
We're just trying to figure out where you're going.
Home, I just said that.
He believes it's the only reason.
Relax this arm.
Relax your arms, okay? Relax your arms.
The police chief says Reese resisted arrest, but the department did not file that charge. If you'd like to see how this played out frame by frame, we have posted a link to the entire video over on our website. That's fox4news.com.
Good evening. A man is assaulted by Henderson police after he tried to help them, and now the city has to pay nearly $500,000. Thanks for joining us. I'm Denise Valdez.
And I'm Brian Loftus. 8 News Now investigator Vanessa Murphy obtained video from that incident, sat down with the victim and his lawyer. Now, we do want to warn you, it is graphic.
For Jim Herndon, it's been 6 long years since he became the victim of excessive force by Henderson police.
This bad situation got out of hand, and
things just spiraled.
He was an assistant store manager at Sportsman's Warehouse. Officers arrive after a call about an armed shoplifter. Here, officers approach the suspect and he runs.
We had a firearm.
Herndon,
I didn't know what he would do.
a former law enforcement officer for more than 2 decades,
Just instincts from lots of years of training.
intervenes.
I recall jumping on him.
But he never expected what would follow.
I saw stars.
This is Sergeant Michael Gillis ramming Herndon in the head with an M4 and using a stun gun.
Somebody had their hands wrapped around my throat and was lifting me up, so I peeled fingers off my throat. Got hit a few more times in the face.
He says he suffered multiple injuries, including a concussion, and he has permanent nerve damage and some memory loss. But there's one moment he can recall after the incident.
They kind of chuckled and said, "Hey, we must have mistaken you for the bad guy." And it was really at that moment that I felt like, well, they're all standing out here getting their story straight.
He later reached out to the city of Henderson
To even do the complaint and do the follow-up with that. I mean, they don't make it easy at all.
In 2021, attorney Marjorie Huff filed a lawsuit against the city, Sergeant Gillis, and 5 other officers.
It was very clear to me that, number one, the police had no plan, that they escalated the situation to a point that it did not need to escalate.
It was safer to have more people.
This is Sergeant Gillis on the stand.
And you would not change a thing.
No.
He testifies the incident tarnished his reputation, a claim Huff is ready for.
But you had previously had excessive force complaints for punching a woman in the face.
There was questions on it, allegations, yeah.
You had allegations against you for sexually harassing women at the Starbucks where you would do your paperwork.
I don't think it was that wordage, but yeah.
Also for inappropriately selling weapons.
Yep.
Voiding traffic tickets for friends and family.
Yes, I did that.
5 to 10 inquiries about using excessive force by Internal Affairs.
Sounds probably right.
You've been placed on leave with pay 4 times.
Yes, ma'am.
What types of incidents cause an officer to be placed on leave with pay?
Shooting incidents where somebody dies or there's substantial bodily harm to that person.
And then the verdict, the city of Henderson must pay $450,000.
What stands out to you about the Henderson Police Department after handling this case?
They clearly have a culture that allowed this to happen. They had no intention of properly investigating either the incident or the internal affairs investigation. The whole thing was just a big rubber stamp. We're just going to say they did the right thing.
It was never about money. It was about accountability. My only hope is that it's enough that it will make Henderson change their ways, and I worry about that.
He says the video shows the moment his life changed forever. Still difficult to watch, but he says he hopes his story may inspire others to seek accountability. Vanessa Murphy, 8 News Now.
Attorney Marjorie Huff says this is the first civil rights trial in state history under a new rule that came down from the Nevada Supreme Court. Now, previously, civil rights cases had to be handled only in federal court. Gillis appears to have retired from the Henderson Police Department. Vanessa reached out to the city, did not receive a response in time for this report.